And we're rolling. Hello there, Filmatic listeners. This is Nabeel Sharif checking back in. Time of recording, it is September 2025, and I believe it's been about 3 months since I last spoke with you. And at that point, to fill in some gaps, of course, we did do the Superman episode, as well as my top films of 2024. Now, given that it's been some time and things have been a little hectic in terms of being able to release another episode, I thought this would be a good time to go into some of my favorite films of the year so far. So for the last 2 years, I've been, if you don't remember from the last video, compiling the best films that I saw for the first time that year. Now that could include, of course, new releases, but also films that I'm just seeing for the first time. And I think sharing these is a really good way to just kind of talk about film, but also share some movies and maybe encourage you to watch or rewatch something that I think is of a pretty high caliber and a great watch. So yeah, I thought I'd just do it now, just to release something. Of course, we are working on Age of Cage as much as we can. Of course, everyone has hectic schedules and whatnot, but you can expect a Ghost Rider episode. Sometime soon in the next month, hopefully. But yeah, so I thought I'd just go over some of the best films I saw this year so far, and just to fill in the blanks and check back in with you. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll go from lowest to highest, just for the sake of making a top 10 or whatever it is. So at number 10, I'm gonna go with Alfred Hitchcock's Rope. Now, Rope is, by the way, I'm going to be doing this off the cuff once again. Please let me know if it is not good, but I'll try to trim and cut silences. So, Rope by Alfred Hitchcock is a great film from 1948. It all takes place in one apartment and is filmed as if it's one shot. And it is incredible. It feels very much like a stage play, but of course done with all the finesse and masterful technique, especially at the time, by Alfred Hitchcock. And of course you have Jimmy Stewart, and some other great actors in that. And it's really hard to talk about this one without spoiling it, but it all centers around, again, this happens in the first 2 minutes, so it's not too much of a spoiler, but it all centers around a murder and the concealing of it and who's going to find out, who wants it to be found out, and that kind of thing. And it's just a great, fairly short watch. It's about an hour and a half. And it is just really masterfully done, a great Hitchcock film. And it was one of my favorite things I saw this year. I think I saw it for free on like YouTube or something. So check that out. Rope by Alfred Hitchcock. Number 9, I'm going to have to put Superman in there. And of course, go watch the Superman episode that we did. But just because we already have an episode on that, I'm going to go ahead and just fill that in with another movie I saw that was great called Under the Silver Lake. And Under the Silver Lake was this really kind of forgotten A24 film right before A24 kind of blew up in like 2019. This was in 2018. And it's actually with Andrew Garfield, among some other cast members. And it's this really interesting sort of homage to like 1940s noir, but set in the modern day, and wrapped into that. That's definitely only one layer of it, because there's so much about conspiracy and the nature of conspiracy, in terms of how crazy actually are conspiracy theorists, but also they are crazy, and it's just laden with themes, and I don't even think I fully delved. I think I only scratched the surface of my first watch, and it was of course recommended to me by my friend Darian, who's been on the podcast. He loves this movie, and he put me onto it, and we watched it together. And once again, it's kind of a mystery film, so it's kind of hard to talk about, but it was really well done, and I'd recommend you guys watch it. It was directed by David Robert Mitchell, who did It Follows, which I know is a very popular movie that I personally haven't seen though. But yeah, this is just a really, really interesting watch that kind of reminds me of a really well done semi-experimental novel. that I might have read when I was younger. And there's just so much thematic density in this. So you got to check that out. So I'll fill that in for Superman at number 9. And number 8, Face Off. Again, we talked about this on the podcast, but just to go over it again, directed by John Woo in 1997, the year of Nicolas Cage, of course, because he had, Face Off, Con Air, and one other film that he did that kind of ruled that year for Nicolas Cage. But Face Off. So for those who don't know, John Woo. Without John Woo, there would be no action films in Hollywood the way that there have been with the sort of revolution in Hollywood of the Matrix. There'd be no Matrix without John Woo. He is one of, if not arguably, the greatest action director of all time. And, through his contributions in Hong Kong cinema with Hard Boiled and, of course, The Killer, possibly his most famous in that era, he revolutionized what action movies could be. And in 1997, he directed this film, Face Off, with Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, where, as many of you might know, even just the premise is very popular, where they switch faces. So you have John Travolta acting like Nicolas Cage, pretending to be John Travolta, and Nicolas Cage acting like John Travolta, pretending to be Nicolas Cage. So it's extremely, extremely entertaining just on that level. And then, of course, you have this masterful, bombastic action done in only a way that John Woo can at that time of 1997. So it truly is just incredible, and it's also just so great to see how movies used to be made. Like this is what a blockbuster used to be in 1997. It's no holds barred, no punches held. So you gotta watch Face Off on the biggest screen you can. And of course, John Woo also did, I should mention, Mission Impossible 2, the most, shat on Mission Impossible for no reason whatsoever. I mean, the fact that he even did that is stunning to me. And it's the most underrated and one of the best Mission Impossibles. So, John Woo, I'm going to be covering more of him hopefully in the future, and I really recommend anybody watch Face Off and watch more John Woo, like The Killer or Hard Boiled. Moving on, number 7, Mickey 17. Mickey 17, for those who, I know a lot of people saw it was pretty popular from earlier this year, I believe February. Bong Joon-ho, great director, incredible director, Parasite, and so many others. And, Robert Pattinson. I think Mickey 17, above all, proves once again that Robert Pattinson is one of, if not the greatest working actor of his generation, or our generation, however you want to put it. He is able to pull off such an incredible performance as the different Mickeys, and of course as Mickey 17 and 18. And I think the trailer for this movie, if you saw it, made it seem like it was going to be a little more sci-fi and dark, and while it definitely has those elements, there's so much like levity and love in the nature and message and themes and environment of this movie, and it's one of my favorite things about it. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars, and I'm excited to rewatch it soon and kind of delve further into those themes, because it seems like there's even more there. But of course, even the stuff that isn't subtle, the heavy-handedness, is done so well by Bong Joon-ho. And I know he's done that in other movies such as Snowpiercer, where it's like the heavy-handedness. And, when a director does heavy-handedness, I think there's a chance that it can go awry. And, heavy-handedness, ironically, has to be done very subtly and well, I feel like, in some regards. Or at least, like, you get one shot at it. And I think, much like Spike Lee, Bong Joon-ho definitely pulls that off. And he pulls it off again in Mickey 17. Okay, so moving on, number 6, Fallen Angels. Okay, so Fallen Angels is directed by Wong Kar-wai. Many of people know him, of course, because he directed his most popular film, In the Mood for Love. But Fallen Angels was one of his earlier films from 1995, and it is really this incredible sort of, you get the Pulp Fictionness of it, but of course it was before Pulp Fiction, if I'm not mistaken. In the sense that there's different vignettes, and then they kind of line up and don't line up in different ways of different people. But what makes it so incredible, I think, is just how genuine and real it feels, and like gritty, while not being too gritty in terms of its reality, and of course its message of love and how passing it can be and how intertwined it can be at the same time, as well as, just some great filmmaking on every level, and he does this thing in the movie where most of the time, 99% of the time, 95%, the camera is really up close and following people. And in the beginning, I wasn't sure about how that choice would go, but in the end, it was really, really immersive, in a way that, again, I think something that seems really easy that a lot of directors really mess up in like modern filmmaking. But of course, he did very masterfully in this one. And Fallen Angels is just incredible. And I want to give that, of course, an honorable mention. Just yesterday, I watched In the Mood for Love for the first time. Also very incredible. I don't know. I'm not sure which one I prefer more. Right now, I'm actually leaning Fallen Angels, which may be a hot take. Not that I don't love In the Mood for Love, but it feels like a very distinct, separate sort of, not mythical, but like, it's a tale. It feels like a very, very intentional tale of two people and what it says about, again, how passing and intimate love can be, which is a common theme in his films, clearly. But Fallen Angels and In the Mood for Love definitely would take that spot for number 6, and very much you gotta watch them. Moving on, in a similar vein, but in a very different execution, for number 5, Mississippi Masala, also a film I saw for the first time this year in 1991, directed by Mira Nair. And one thing about this that I really loved is, again, being a South Asian person, getting to see such accuracy and, genuineness of the culture, and that intertwining with, of course, the culture of, Uganda, and of course the culture of the African American experience, and all of that intertwining. And it's very, again, also a very like straightforward movie, doesn't pull punches in what it's trying to say, but it just does it so well, and so, for lack of a better term, flavorful, or as, masala. And I think that's obviously very intentional. And it's also just a great rom-com, and it's really surprising that, it's not more popular and spoken about, I feel like, in the mainstream as like a cultural rom-com, especially as those are kind of making a resurgence in recent years in a modern form. So Mississippi Masala is a must-watch. And of course, Denzel Washington, such a great actor, and not the type of movie I would have expected him to be in from seeing his other movies, honestly, in terms of being in a rom-com above all. So, and just an incredible cast across the board. Everyone feels very real and genuine once again, which really plays into the themes of the story. Moving up, I would have to say I'm a little torn on this one, but I'm gonna go with Punch Drunk Love. Seeing Punch Drunk Love for the first time was really incredible. Paul Thomas Anderson, 2002. Paul Thomas Anderson, unfortunately, is Zionist. Adam Sandler, unfortunately, is Zionist. But they really did some good work on this one. Adam Sandler, again, all of his movies are pretty terrible and like unfunny by and large, except for when he pulls out an Oscar-winning level actor in Punch Drunk Love, and I would say also Uncut Gems, another incredible film, where he just works with these, incredible directors and decides to be able to act and be funny or be whatever he needs to be for the script. But Punch Drunk Love, I think, is also a very underrated sort of early 2000s film. Philip Seymour Hoffman, of course, does a great performance, limited role, but great performance. Such an incredible actor who's unfortunately passed on. But one thing that I really love the most about this movie is the way that Adam Sandler is able to express rage in a way that I think is very, very, would seem easy, right? It's like, again, as a common person, it's like, oh, it's like an actor. When they get mad, they just have to get really mad and loud. But he does it in such a way that it's clearly, feels realistic, but also muted by an intense yearning for love. And that is like the crux of his being, is that yearning and mourning for not having it so late in his life. So that's a little relatable, but no, I'm just,
oh my god!
But
hell no, man! What the fuck?
The way that he's able to intertwine these feelings in such a masterful way, in the way that he's playing the character, is really the highlight of this movie for me. So yeah, Punch Drunk Love, check it out. Number 3, I'm gonna go with Batman from 1966, the feature film, starring, of course, Adam West and Burt Ward as the dynamic duo. This movie is, again, there's so much to talk about in terms of, obviously everyone considers, Adam West Batman from this TV series and this movie to be like a joke. It's like what he did for the character is wrong in terms of like too silly, whatever. But obviously, A, that's stupid on numerous levels, but B, you go back and you watch the TV series, and especially if you watch this movie, the level of clearly present minded, like they know what they're doing. The camp humor is genuinely incredible, and I would say the humor and definitely Adam West's performance is on par with Peter Sellers in the Pink Panther, and I was genuinely surprised by that. I wasn't expecting that. And there's just so many incredible jokes and incredible through line, recurring gags that are some of the funniest I've ever seen in my life. And it just stunned me that no one had ever talked about this my whole life, both as a comic book fan and comic movie fan, but also as a comedy and camp fan, honestly. And I think it truly is, I gave it a perfect score, 5 out of 5. I think it's a perfect, campy, funny movie. And Adam West, I think, should be talked about up there with Peter Sellers and Jerry Lewis and all these other icons of not early, but mid to contemporary comedy. And the fact that he isn't as incredible. And of course, Burt Ward does a great job, and you have Cesar Romero and Lee Merriweather and Burgess Meredith as the villains and so on, who also are delivering incredible performance. And maybe I'm crazy, but Batman 1966 is a 5 out of 5 for me. And I really recommend you guys watch it. And I've been yearning to watch it again. I love to go back and watch these episodes of the TV series now. It's just a great time. It's comforting and fun and colorful, but also incredibly funny, and sometimes makes some really, really good political points as well. Of course, that's a whole nother conversation, of course, is because in the wake of Vietnam and whatnot, and the rise of the what they would call at the time the hippie movement, but like the pacifist movement, and its comments on that in terms of like Batman basically being a cop and the villains being usually people who were at the time frowned upon for being potheads or pacifists or whatever. It's really just incredible. I could go on for hours about it, actually. Please watch Batman 1966, the movie, and the TV series while you're at it. That was number 3. For number 2, The Blair Witch Project. I never seen it. Watched it with my friends, Evan, of course, who I think really pitched this to me, and who's been on the podcast. And I think growing up, especially like in the age of like YouTube becoming a thing, and you see all these like critiques of famous movies and whatnot with like Cinema Sins or whatever, which is a whole nother, the damage Cinema Sins has done to like media literacy is incredible. But you see a lot of parodies and whatever. And I thought that I understood. I was like, oh, The Blair Witch Project, it's just a stupid found footage movie. I'm sure like, it's just really like cheap and stupid. And, you hear about, of course, the viral marketing campaign at the time of, people thinking it was real or not, and the whole website and posters and things that were done to convince people that these student filmmakers really did disappear, and this was found footage. But you actually watch it, and it's clearly one of the best horror movies of all time for numerous reasons, but chief of which is like how much is in the implication. It really treats you like a competent viewer, in terms of, when you see a modern version of the Blair Witch Project, either, I don't mean just the reboot, but I mean like other found footage or even just modern horror films in general, it doesn't treat the audience like you're smart people. It treats you like you're idiots who are gonna get scared by the same jump scare 10 times and need to have everything spelled out. But this is so much of the terror in this movie is in the incredible acting and the incredible story of how they even filmed all of this, in the sense of they actually did go out into the woods and were separate from the director and got their notes and overnight, in scrolled up papers that were left for them by the crew and whatever. And I don't know, everything came together in a perfect storm where it just feels so genuine, and the terror is just in the environment and in the reality of what they're filming. And of course, I'm not going to spoil it, but like just how simple and well done the ending is. And maybe some people would see it coming. I don't think so. I think that you kind of forget about it in the midst of everything. If you haven't seen it, you don't know what I'm talking about, but forget it. You should watch The Blair Witch Project if you haven't seen it. And it's really one of the most incredible horror movies of all time, truly. It's not overrated at all in that sense, in my opinion. And number one, let's talk about number one, Wild at Heart. Talked about it on the podcast during our episode that we made in the wake of David Lynch passing, and we're planning to make more in days of David Lynch, hopefully. But yeah, I saw Wild at Heart for the first time from 1990, and with Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern. Incredible, absolutely. I've been told this is the most straightforward of David Lynch's work. I haven't seen much of it, to be honest, but I think that it has just the right mix for me of Lynchianness as an introductory viewer. I mean, I'm ready to delve more into it, but I think it's a great introductory into from what I understand to be David Lynch's body of work. Because you have this sort of fairy tale, and that's very prevalent in the movie, very directly at the end, of course. Fairy tale wrapped in the weirdness of David Lynch's mind and the world, and the incredible acting from all of the actors, but especially, of course, Nicolas Cage and Willem Dafoe. But yeah, Wild at Heart is a must-watch if you haven't seen it. And I think most people who are David Lynch fans have seen it, because David Lynch fans tend to, start strong and kind of delve into it. From all of my friends who are, like, they've seen his main ones right away. So I think I'm probably talking mostly to the people who are not that adept at David Lynch's filmography. And I would say go for it, watch Wild at Heart, and then, like me, try to delve more into Twin Peaks and all the other great films after that. So those are some of the great films I've seen so far this year as we enter mid-September. And I hope you guys got some film recs, hopefully, or appreciated my list. So we'll be at you soon, hopefully, with the Ghost Rider episode continuing Age of Cage, and of course talking about any other new movie that comes out or ideas we have. I hope everyone is well, and I hope you're doing all right. All right, Nabeel Sharif, Filmatic, over and out.